Well, a very good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. Global markets remain on the edge. Swiss National Bank and Bank of England follow the US Fed in hiking rates despite the banking turmoil. The Wall Street ends at the low point of the day after failing to hold on to early gains. Sensex loses nearly 300 points, Nifty down 75. Bank stocks lead the decline. Inflation continues to bite Motown. Maruti Suzuki announces price hikes starting April across various models. Tata Motors, Honda and Hero Moto are among the many automakers to announce price hikes from April. Global auto major Ford reveals its electric vehicle business lost over $2 billion in 2022 on an operating basis, but the losses were offset by $10 billion in profit from internal combustion and fleet businesses. Ford is also projecting losses of $3 billion for its EV unit in 2023. Accenture plans to cut 19,000 jobs in a bid to optimize costs. IT major beats its own guidance in Q2 but trims its revenue guidance for the full year marginally. Hindenburg targets Jack Dorsey's block, accusing the company of facilitating fraud and inflation using metrics. Shares of Block plunge in trade after Hindenburg reveals it has taken short positions. The centre seeks legal opinion as it considers regulations to curb operations of e-pharmacies. Sources say that the government is concerned about patient data being leaked or misused. The Tatas, Reliance, among others, have invested in the e-pharmacy space. Anil Agarwal denies any intention of selling his stake in Vedanta. This after reports suggested Agarwal is considering various options, including a minority stake sale to raise funds and reduce the debt burden. A Surat court finds Rahul Gandhi guilty of defamation in a 2019 case for targeting Prime Minister Modi for sharing his surname with fugitive businessmen Nirav Modi and Lalit Modi. Court sentences Rahul Gandhi to 2 years in jail and suspends the sentence for 30 days to give him time to appeal. Well, straight to the top story this evening. Global markets remained on the edge as central banks around the world hiked interest rates. After the US Fed hiked rates by 25 basis points last evening, the Bank of England has followed suit and hiked interest rates for 11th time in a row by 25 basis points to 4.25%. The central bank said that the economy was grappling with persistently high inflation as it raised rates to its highest levels since 2008. Meanwhile, the Swiss central bank raised its benchmark interest rate by 50 basis points despite the Credit Suisse turmoil. This makes the fourth consecutive hike by the central bank. Meanwhile, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that the US Fed remained focused on its fight to bring down inflation, signaling that there could be further rate hikes in the months to come. He described the Silicon Valley Bank as an outlier. The US markets actually gained after the US Fed's rate decision, as it was largely expected. The slump came after the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's statements on the banking crisis, leading to a fall in markets around the world. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told members of a Senate committee that she will not be considering a blanket insurance for bank deposits without congressional approval. Well, meanwhile, weak global cues roiled sentiment on the Wall Street. Sensex and Nifty ended at the low point of the day, with bank stocks leading the decline. All the Nifty bank constituents ended in the red. And well, automobile companies are gearing up for price hikes amid the rising inflation and upcoming BS6 phase 2 regulatory norms. Maruti Suzuki has announced a price hike across its entire range. However, it has not disclosed the sale of the hike. Other companies, including Hero MotoCorp, will hike prices of its two-wheelers by 2% starting from April. Eicher Motors is mulling a hike of 2 to 3%. Tata Motors also announced a price hike of 5% for its commercial vehicles portfolio. Well, speaking of automobiles, Ford Electric's vehicle business has lost a whopping $2.1 billion in 2022. This is more than double of the $900 million that it lost in the previous year. But this loss was offset by more than $10 billion in profit from its internal combustion and fleet businesses. Ford is now projecting losses to the tune of $3 billion for its EV business in 2023. CNBC's Phil LeBeau spoke to Ford's CFO John Lawler on the losses and the way forward. Well, from the IT space, IT giant Accenture has announced that it plans to trim around 2.5% of its workforce. This adds up to nearly 19,000 jobs. In a regulatory filing, the management said that it is taking steps to lower its costs and cited weak global economic outlook as the reason behind this. Shilpa Rani Petta now joins us with more details. Shilpa, tell us, what are you picking up?
Well, Accenture has become the latest company to announce job cuts. 19,000 employees, or 2.5% of the workforce, will be laid off. Now, this is in the next 18 months. This comes amidst the global economic outlook that seems to be forcing enterprises to cut down on spending on IT services. Now, Accenture also lowered its revenue guidance for the fiscal to 8 to 10% compared to the earlier 8% to 11% that it had expected. Now, for the third quarter, it expects revenue to be in the range of about $16.1 to $16.7 billion, which is an increase of about 3 to 7%. This is in local currency terms. Now, this also reflects its assumption of a 3.5% negative forex impact. Now, this comes even as the company's revenue for the quarter ending February beat its own guidance, and it came in 9% higher in local currency terms. Now, it also reported a record new bookings at $22.1 billion. Now, amid the challenging macroeconomic scenario, Accenture has said that it has initiated actions to streamline operations and reduce this cost. Now, the company spent about $244 million in business optimization costs during the quarter, and it expects to record another total cost of about $1.5 billion through FY24, and of this, about $1.2 billion will be in severance. Now, Accenture's the job cuts and the lowering of guidance may not be very good news for India's IT sector, because remember, Accenture's earnings are usually considered the barometer for what to expect from earnings of Indian IT services companies. And this is because Accenture is the strongest company in the consulting side. And if there is a slowdown there, that could mean that our enterprises are cutting down on spends. Back to you.
Right, Shilpa, thanks a lot for that. So some headwinds there affecting Accenture's plans going forward. Let's move ahead now. The government is seeking legal opinion on regulating e-pharmacies. We've learnt from sources that the Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizers has drafted regulations aimed at curbing the operations of e-pharmacies. The government is concerned about data leaks and misuse via these online platforms. Regulators have also issued show-cause notices to over 20 e-pharmacies. These companies have sought time to respond to the government notices. CNBC-TV18's Aishwarya Anand spoke to Tata's 1MG's Prashant Tandon earlier this week on the regulatory concerns. Take a look.
All of these are well governed by various laws and acts, and those independent acts can take action and should take action. And it's not an online debate. It's whether online or offline, if any sale is happening without a license, if sales are happening without prescriptions, if sales are happening of fake medicines, all of that, there are laws that govern that, and those laws are sufficient and take care of it.
Well, with e-pharmacies coming under the scanner, what impact could this have on existing investors? Aishwarya Anand is here joining us with more on the industry landscape. Aishwarya.
That's right. Since the beginning of the pandemic, over $700 million have been invested in e-pharmacy players. Some of the world's largest venture investors, including Sequoia, Temasek, Prosus and TPG, are now facing a risk of seeing their investments evaporate without an IPO or an acquisition as an exit option. PharmEasy pulled its IPO papers last year and is now facing the hurdle. Over $1.6 billion have been invested in the online pharmacy player. It has even made some large-ticket acquisitions, picking up MedLife and even the listed Thyrocare to grow its diagnostic business. It's not just venture investors at risk here. Some of India's largest conglomerates have an exposure too. Tata has a controlling stake in 1MG and pumped in $40 million just 6 months ago. When it comes to NetMeds, it was acquired by Reliance Retail in mid-2020. Now, while the concept of e-pharmacy caught up in 2015, it was the pandemic that drew investor interest. As you can see, before the pandemic hit, only 3 million people were ordering medicines online. Now, once the lockdown was imposed, within 2 months, that number went up to 9 million. It's estimated that 70 million people would be ordering medicines online by 2024, following the trends in e-commerce, supported by a growing internet user base. As it stands, the e-pharmacy market in India is valued at about $350 million. While there are about 50 companies operating in this space, the online pharmacies account for only 1.5 to 3% of the total pharmacy sales in India, which stands at over $10 billion. That despite the surge during the pandemic, the domestic e-pharmacy market is still in its infancy stage. Netmeds, Tata 1mg and PharmEasy together hold 80% of the total market share. It is these market leaders and their investors who are most at risk if the government takes a U-turn on e-pharmacy.
Right, Aishwarya, thanks a lot for that. Now, Vedanta Chairman Anil Agarwal has told CNBC-TV18 that he has no intention to sell any stake in the company. This clarification comes after a Bloomberg report said that Agarwal is considering the option of selling less than 5% stake in Vedanta. The report also mentioned that this decision will be taken as the last resort as debt continues to mount. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited's offer for sale opened today. It was subscribed over 4 times. The floor price stood at 6.6% discount to yesterday's closing price. The OFS for the retail category will be available tomorrow. The government is planning to sell 3.5% stake in HAL. Bloomberg reports that the Tata Group is considering infusion of $2 billion into its super app venture, Tata Neu. As per Bloomberg, additional funding of over the next 2 years will be utilized to revive the super app, which ran into technical glitches after its launch in 2020. The conglomerate has also asked its digital arm to look for ways to boost the valuation of Tata Neu. Well, Jio BP, a fuel and mobility joint venture between Reliance Industries and BP, is all set to install EV charging stations across all Piramal's residential projects in Mumbai metropolitan region. Customers and visitors to Piramal's residential projects will be able to charge their electric vehicles at the Jio BP Pulse EV charging stations set up at the properties using the Jio BP Pulse mobile app. Well, here's the big national story. A Surat court found Congress leader Rahul Gandhi guilty in a 2019 criminal defamation case filed by former Gujarat Minister Purnesh Modi. The case was filed against Rahul Gandhi for targeting Prime Minister Modi for sharing his surname with fugitive businessmen Nirav Modi and Lalit Modi. During a rally in Karnataka, the court sentenced Gandhi to 2 years in jail but later suspended the sentence for 30 days to allow him to appeal in a higher court.
मालूम था पहले से ये लोग जज को बदलते गए, ये सारी चीजें करते गए, हमको तो अंदाजा लग रहा था, लेकिन हम कानून में विश्वास रखने वाले हैं, जुडिशरी में विश्वास रखने वाले हैं और कानून के तहत ही हम लड़ेंगे।
राहुल जी को इस सच्चाई को स्वीकार करना चाहिए कि शब्दों की चोट शस्त्रों की चोट से ज्यादा गहरी और पीड़ादायी होती है और शब्द जब अनर्गल और झूठे हों तब तो चोट और गहरी और कष्टदायी हो जाती है। इसलिए हमारी कानूनी व्यवस्था में अनर्गल बेतुके आरोप लगाने वालों पर सजा का सीधा प्राविधान है।
Admitted position is that no one which is the subject matter of the statement which is found to be offending has filed a criminal complaint. The first condition precedent of the law of defamation appears to have been patently not fulfilled and yet led to a conviction. The very context of this speech shows that there could not have been any malicious intent.
The law of India is that if an individual or an organization has been defamed by defamatory comment, by abuses, by scurrilous comments, by scandalous comments, then he has got the right to seek redress. क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी को इस पर ये परेशानी है क्या कि वो चाहते हैं कि राहुल गांधी को कंप्लीट फ्रीडम दिया जाए, वो गाली पढ़ते रहें?
Rahul Gandhi has suffered a conviction in a defamation case, which in turn has opened up a Pandora's box, both political and legal. We get you a few details that you can bear in mind as you watch this high decibel political drama. Now, as per Section 499 of the Indian Penal Code, that's the provision that defines defamation. It is designed to place restrictions on free speech to protect personal reputation. But is that really how it is being used. Well, we'll come to that in just a bit. But first, what is defamation? Well, as per Section 499, any imputation concerning any person intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such a person is said to defame that person. That, of course, is the legal definition. Meanwhile, Section 500 of the IPC says that in case of conviction, the court can slap a fine or a jail term of up to 2 years. So, what does this mean for Rahul Gandhi, who's looking at a 2-year jail term? Will he be disqualified as the MP from Wayanad? That's the question many are asking. Well, under the Representation of People's Act, an MP can be disqualified if he or she is facing a jail term of 2 years or more in a conviction. However, disqualification is triggered 3 months after the date of conviction. Rahul Gandhi is likely to challenge this conviction order before a High Court, and if the High Court stays the conviction, then the disqualification will also get put on hold. However, if the High Court refuses to stay the conviction, it may then lead to loss of his status as an MP or a Member of Parliament. Now, as for criminal defamation itself, it has been subjected to heavy criticism. People have termed it as a tool of strategic intimidation by those in positions of power. It has also been criticized for being used as a way to police criticism. Now, these were some of the arguments, in fact, that were raised before the SC as well, before the Supreme Court as well. However, in 2016, a bench headed by former Chief Justice of India, Justice Deepak Mishra, upheld criminal defamation as being constitutionally valid. So the criminal defamation provision are here to stay. On that note, let's in fact listen to senior advocate Sanjay Hegde on the very subject.
I do not know of any Supreme Court case which has upheld a sentence of 2 years. If he gets a stay on his conviction, then there is no question of a disqualification. Otherwise, the parliamentary process of disqualification will happen. And against that, there might not be a legal recourse.
Well, with that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up, the Hindenburg targets Jack Dorsey this time. Jack Dorsey's block accusing the company of facilitating fraud and inflating user metrics. That and more when we come back.
जैम मारते रहना है छक्का.
Welcome back. Now, the financial research firm Hindenburg has accused Twitter founder Jack Dorsey's company Block of frictionless fraud that inflated user metrics and enabled insiders to cash out over $1 billion. Now, Hindenburg claims it conducted a 2-year investigation. Its report has attributed Block's success to its willingness to facilitate fraud against consumers and the government and avoiding regulations. The report has also accused the payments firm of dressing up predatory loans and fees as revolutionary technology. The US-based short seller has said that it has taken short positions in shares of Block, whose shares sunk after the report came out. The Russia-Ukraine war enters its 14th month after massive drone attacks near Ukrainian capital Kyiv. Officials claim at least 8 people have been killed, several others have been injured. Russia said that its forces repelled a Ukrainian drone attack in the Crimean city of Sevastopol. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.